Municipalities are struggling to budget for increased expenses and reduced tax revenue next year due to COVID. Leaders might be tempted to postpone capital projects and put that money toward immediate needs, but this could increase operational cost and make the projects even more expensive to build later. If your community doesn't have a long-term capital improvement plan, now is a great time to put one together in order to maximize the return on your limited budget dollars. And if you do have a long-term capital improvement plan, Josh Fox is here to tell you why you want to stay the course and stick to your plan. Josh is the practice area leader of HRG's Water and Wastewater Group, and he's helped many municipalities and municipal authorities develop long-term capital improvement plans for their infrastructure. He's going to tell us about why these plans can be so beneficial, particularly now. Josh, thanks for joining me today.
No problem, Adrienne. Thanks for inviting me.
So most municipalities are seeing reduced revenue due to lower sales taxes and lower income taxes. At the same time, they've had to take on new expenses related to emergency response and other COVID-related changes. They might be tempted to fill budget gaps with money they've put aside for capital projects, but you don't recommend that, do you?
No, delaying capital projects increases costs now and in the future. Researchers have shown that every dollar you delay incurs $4 in costs later. There's a lot of reasons for that increased cost. First is the increased operational and maintenance expense. You're going to have to spend more money to keep your infrastructure functioning than a new project would require. And emergency repairs, if they are necessary, are going to be much more expensive than planned repairs or replacement. Another reason is reduced efficiency. Newer projects produce better results, saving your staff time and reducing labor costs, as well as projects that include increased electrical efficiency, chemical efficiency, and other efficiencies. In extreme conditions, delaying projects could even result in regulatory fines. If your infrastructure is failing, you may fall out of compliance with state or federal requirements, and you could face steep fines as a result. We found in times of crisis, we've seen agencies often forgive or provide forgiveness for non-compliance issues. For example, an agency might give extra time to address sanitary sewer overflows after a hurricane or major storm event. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that with COVID. Regulatory agencies are unlikely to see reduced rate collection or tax revenue as an excuse for failing to meet those long-established requirements. That's not the only risk. If the infrastructure actually fails, it could result in significant liabilities related to the health and safety of your team and community. Communities don't want to be sacked with lawsuits from businesses for lost revenue due to infrastructure failure, or be on the front page of the newspaper or the 5 o'clock news for having health-related illnesses as a result of failed infrastructure. Pushing projects off not only increases the risk we just discussed, completing the project at a later date almost always increases the construction costs. Review of the E&R index is a good example of how costs continue to escalate over time.
There's clearly a lot of risk associated with delaying capital projects, but there's a lot of benefits to proactive planning capital improvements beyond reducing risk. Can you talk about those?
Absolutely. I work primarily with water and wastewater utilities. So one of the main benefits I see is rate stabilization. The utility wants to hit their customers with a massive rate increase, especially during a recession, but that might be necessary if they delay projects until an emergency hits and they're faced with steep, unexpected costs. You don't want to think about your budget 1 year at a time. You want to plan 5 to 10 years out so you can set up financing strategies and accumulate the capital you need over time. This is a critical part of the capital improvement planning process. Also, when you plan projects in advance, you can schedule them strategically and reduce costs through efficiencies. For example, you might know you need to replace aging water mains in an area, and you also know that the pavement needs rehabilitation or sewer mains need repaired. It makes good sense to fix the utilities first, that you only have to replace the pavement once. Without a proactive plan, you may end up completing related project costs multiple times. Right now, we've seen other investor-owned utilities doing replacement work in several communities that I work with. And those communities are looking at moving some of their own utility projects up in order to save on pavement repair and replacement costs later by sharing in those capital costs with those investor-owned utilities. That kind of synergy is really only possible if you have a long-term capital improvement plan in place and know what projects you have coming up in the next few years. This brings up another important benefit: cooperation and coordination. With a proactive approach to planning, you're better able to coordinate with other stakeholders on projects. Capital projects can involve roadway closures or detours. They can involve temporary service shutoffs. These can be hard on businesses, schools, and residents alike. With a proactive approach to capital improvement planning, you can work with those stakeholders and schedule the work in a way that minimizes the negative impact on them. This is particularly important now during the pandemic. Imagine a local restaurant that has lost so much revenue over the past few months due to reduced capacity requirements. then visualize that the pandemic is over and they can finally return to full capacity, but the roadway outside their business is closed for repairs. This would be a significant hardship, and capital improvement planning can help you avoid that. Finally, bundling is another benefit of a long-term approach to capital improvements and infrastructure. If you have several similar projects to complete, you can potentially bundle them together to achieve economies of scale and negotiate lower material costs. You can also lower bid costs by combining them into one singular bid.
Bundling projects also makes them more competitive for grant applications. This is an important point too. Help communities obtain millions in grant money, and I talk to funding agency leaders on a regular basis. I know that projects backed by a long-term capital improvement plan are more likely to receive funding than those that don't. Why do you think that is, Josh?
Well, funding agencies want to see a documented need for a project and real evidence of the benefits that a project could produce for the community. A capital improvement plan provides that information. Agencies also want to know that their investment will be protected, that the project will make it to completion, and that it'll be well maintained afterwards. As a result, they frequently require matching funds. A community with capital improvement plan provides that necessary evidence that they are setting aside the necessary funds to provide this match, support a project until it's complete, and maintain it once it's completed. Having a capital improvement plan in place also prepares municipalities to take advantage of great opportunities when they arise. You've often heard of the term shovel ready associated with infrastructure funding. When a new program, like the stimulus funds that came through during the Great Recession, comes along, they're looking for projects that are ready to proceed, see an immediate impact on the community. This means a lot of the preliminary work identifying the need, considering options, obtaining permits and environmental clearances, but that's already happened. We're still hoping a similar stimulus will come through soon as a result of the COVID pandemic, and communities that have already identified potential projects will be better positioned to obtain that funding when it does. They can look at the projects they have coming up and find ones that best fit the goals and requirements of the funding program.
Low interest rates provide another reason why municipalities may want to continue moving their capital projects forward right now. Right, Josh? The cost of infrastructure related debt is lower than it's been in a long time.
That's right. The money a community saves on interest can be put towards other budget needs or even other capital improvements. A municipality might even want to consider moving projects up right now and completing a project that they had planned to do in another year or two, just to take advantage of the interest savings they could benefit from. An engineer with capital improvement planning experience could help you prepare a cost-benefit analysis that considers those operational savings and interest savings against the cost of debt to see if it's worth advancing that future project now.
That's a great idea. Do you have any more advice about capital improvement planning for our municipal clients?
Yeah, we've talked a lot today about the importance of moving design and construction forward, even in these uncertain times, because the cost of delay will likely be higher than the investment they make, either in actual dollars such as labor and interest rates, or an increased risk. But it's equally important to consider moving forward on the planning side too. If you have a capital improvement plan already, my advice is don't wait until year 5 to update the plan. Your team should continually evaluate opportunities to maximize the service life, lower costs, and take advantage of new opportunities that may arise. If you don't have a capital improvement plan, consider creating one. You may be concerned about investing your limited budget in a long-term plan when money is tight. There are ample needs staring you down right now. It might seem better to invest in physical needs that give you something to show for your money rather than a spreadsheet or a nice bound report. But capital improvement plans often pay for themselves by laying out a flexible path for reducing operating and maintenance costs, investing in your communities, and lengthening the life cycle of your infrastructure. When money is tight like it is now, those savings are more important than ever. It's important to have a plan that you can adapt as things constantly change.
That's very true. I want to encourage anyone who has questions about capital improvement planning to reach out to Josh and I. You could leave a comment below, send us a private message on LinkedIn, or give us a call at the Harrisburg office of HRG. You can also check out our website for more resources. We have a lot of articles that discuss asset management and capital improvement planning. And we also have case studies and a webinar that you can check out. Thank you, Josh, for taking the time to talk with us today. You've given us many great reasons to take a proactive approach to infrastructure repair and replacement.
Thanks, Adrienne.